One of the preeminent researchers on the world state they're bringing into play, and really how they're going to consolidate all these regions under, one or just a few banks and under a global sort of system. So, Alan, I'd like to bring up, how fast is this coming down? How fast is it going to be the kind of widespread depression that perception alone won't be able to mask? And what will they do with the so-called revolutionary masses, whether they've identified the right problem or not?
Well, they already have their plans to deal with the revolutionary masses. They know who everyone is, and of course the Internet's fantastic for that because they've got their pulse on the public all the time. There's no privacy at all. It's all for data collection. And so they'll be dealt with quite easily. They can come in and take them out very quickly, in fact, if that's necessary or they deem it necessary. And they already have internal armies set up. I mean, police are not police anymore. They haven't been police for a long time. They're really military guys. Most of the recruits for the last 15, maybe even 20 years are from the military. And they've had all the experience in rounding up people and putting them in camps, etc. That'll be done very, very quickly. We saw that done, in fact, during one of the Olympic Games, I think it was, in the States. And they went out, and within a couple of hours had everyone rounded up that was on a list, hundreds and hundreds of people. So it's quite easy to do that, the practice for an awful long time. So they're not worried about that at all. In fact, I think they want to understand that the battle is for the majority of what they call the silent majority in the general populations. There's always, the bulk of the population will always go with the regular media, the status quo. The answers are given are enough to satisfy them. It makes them feel comfortable and cozy. They like to feel they're part of something. The image that's presented as their nation, their country, and all that kind of thing. So rioters will be presented really as the new terrorists, you see, and that actually brings the silent majority closer to government for protection, and they're all for whatever measures are necessary to subdue this, what appears to be riotous mobs in society. That's how it's going to be presented to the public. And all the plans, I'm sure, have been tested and put through computer simulations and God knows what else for the scenarios that are coming. But 2012 is a big year. They actually hope to have the U.S. and Latin America mainly amalgamated. Understand, if you watch the European Union, you can become a member, but you don't have to be totally integrated. It's a step-by-step process. And they hope to have, at least in the first part of integration, with their peace and prosperity partnerships and all the rest of it, and then peace and security partnerships, etc. They hope to have it all done by 2012. So this might just, if they're on time, they'll manage to get the riots started because of the inflation. The people living on the fixed lower incomes are the first to really come out and protest it because they get hit first, and they can't compensate for it. There's no extra income. That's happened, of course, partly in Britain too already. We see that, and they'll do the same in the States. There's a massive welfare system. There's a lot of people on fixed pensions across the country, and they can't cope as the prices escalate. This is all done by design.
Absolutely. And now we have the NFL starting to pat down its fans. They started this with the Super Bowl, but it's a new ritual in this fascist system that to even get the bread and circuses now, first you submit to the security and then you get the games, Alan.
Yes, and to be honest with you, I personally have to bypass the mentality of the people who persist and going through it. If you have any dignity at all, you wouldn't even have subjected to the first pat down at airports. Just stop traveling. Simple as that. Same thing with games, etc. If you have no personal dignity, then go ahead and be patted down and be part of the big herd. This is a time when you have to decide as an individual where you stand on things and how far you're going to allow this incredible totalitarian system to go. Because believe you me, they won't stop there. They won't stop with pat-downs. During the X-rays, you're going to get body cavity searches. Anything to humiliate you and teach you that you're nothing. You're nothing.
I agree. This is about taking our lives back. Sorry to cut you off. We're coming up on the break, Alan. We're going to have plenty more time. Just after this, stay with us. We're just starting to get into it. I'm Aaron Dykes. Back in a moment. I'm Aaron Dykes sitting in for Alex Jones. Again, he'll be back tomorrow. But right now, we're in with Alan Watt, who's done some of the deepest research I've seen on the bigger system they're bringing into place. So, Alan, we know they've set the stage for these economic riots. Obviously, all that's upon us. But the RAND Corporation also wrote 3 years ago, in 2008, lobbying the Pentagon to start a new war to save the U.S. economy. We know they've also set the stage for World War III. The whole Middle East is essentially in revolution. How are they going to transform that to achieve their larger goal, Alan? And what do you see on the immediate front?
Well, it's so interesting, too, this strange RAND Corporation that's a non-profit organization, supposedly, that every country pays millions, if not sometimes billions of dollars to for their forecasts, and they're a think tank, supposedly. As part of the institution, they were on the go during the whole Cold War. They ran the American society during the Cold War as part of game theory. You've probably studied that. And they used game theory, that every citizen's personal profile into this supercomputer in the RAND Corporation, and they worked for the entire length of the Cold War with the Pentagon, basically dictating the lifestyle, the system, and the future for the whole of the U.S. So here they are at it again. They've never stopped, of course, because we're not really run by government, you understand. The government's there to put things into law, that's it, and pass on information to all their helpers. But the RAND Corporation, all the big foundations and corporations are the parallel government that Maggie Thatcher called them, in fact, the parallel government. So did Carol Quigley. That's what they are. We're not run by democracy or even republicanism. We're run by private corporations, and we always really have been. So, and that ties back in with Rockefeller with his comment on it's far preferable to have it run by bankers and intelligentsia than leaving countries to their sovereign destinies, basically. So we're well on our way to this. Getting back, though, to the TS, the pat-downs at the arenas, you got to remember that how many things it fulfills in one go. Now, it's the only time that men today will try and bond with their sons is taking them to a ball game. And because they're not men at home, they're not men at all, in fact, today. But they still have this tribal instinct in passing on knowledge to your son, and this is what it is to be a man. So come and watch these guys bash each other on the field. And then he goes home, and he does what everyone else tells him to do when he's at home. But anyway, the son's getting brought up now. He'll get brought up getting taught that this is normal, son. You go through all this humiliation, and then you get your reward of watching the game. And so that it's going to help to train the next generation. This is here forever, this system, for our lifetimes at least. This is here for an awful, awful long time. It's called perpetual war, constant conflict, they called it in the military magazine. And this is what they have got planned for generations, is to bring this whole world into this new order of things. And it's a completely new way of living. It's a system where you can't decide anything pretty well on your own as an individual. It's a whole new set of rules and how to live by. And you'll be taught eventually to serve the world state. That's to be the highest honor. They're already pushing all of that across Europe big time. They call it communitarianism, where the federal government is supposedly decentralizing its power down to the local level, and they already have these commissars from the private NGOs run by the foundations to be the leaders. And this is a new Soviet system, you understand, because this is how the Soviet system was supposed to be, ruled by councils. So each little community, each trade, each factory, each organization had its NGO speaker, supposedly speaking on behalf of the public underneath them, or that they represented, and that's called the Soviet. And this is to be a new Soviet system, an advanced Soviet system for the whole planet that we're going under. But just like the Soviet system was a big con, because they say one thing and do the other, private banks flourished incredibly within the Soviet Union for all their talk about a central bank run by the state. The private banks could flourish as long as they did not make their money off the profit or the profit off of labor. Now, lawyers can run rings around that, and then they did from the beginning in the Bolsheviks right through the Soviet system. And the same thing with this system that's coming in. And those who serve the system, the higher up the level that they go, the greater the lifestyle they will live. So reward is a big, big part of it. but they do want a big mass at the bottom to live in poverty as we go through this, knowing we're supposed to all die off according to the military magazines, the think tanks for the military of the US and for Britain. They both came out with the same basic projections up to the year 2040. They've done another one up to the year 2050, and they say there's going to be a drastic decline in population across the whole world, including the West, from now basically up until 2050. So this is not meant to fool us forever. We're supposed to die off. Most people are not having children to start with, except immigrants. And even the immigrants, of course, adapt the lifestyle very quickly. It's very enticing to be told as a child you can do anything you want. And they go and do it, and often kill themselves in the process through disease or various other means. But this is a long-term plan to reduce the populations, and even the world government is not the end goal of it all. The military think tank said there will be a world government for a short time, and then the world will consist of a few high-tech city-states, and countries will be gone, long forgotten, and even the regions that were under the United Nations will be gone as well. So this is all a stepping stone to the next stepping stone to the next stepping stone until they have their wonderful utopia for themselves at the top. High-tech city-states, those who survive will be in the science industries, basically, high-tech sciences, and the rest of the old laboring classes will be unnecessary. In the meantime, China will supply the labor and the manufacturer to keep essential things going until they bring it all down. So you're looking literally ahead for another 40 years, step by step by step. What we're going through right now is just the chaos to get us to amalgamate the continents completely into the regions, and then to allow a brief time for the United Nations, the World Bank, to take over, the Bank for International Settlements, and the IMF to run the economy and distribute the wealth of the world. This is what they call it. It literally means rationing out food. Under the United Nations, they've already said this is in their charter. Eventually, the United Nations will be responsible for doling out the food to each region, and it will be rationed. And if you have too many people for the ration that you get, then you must find a way to bring down your population. That's in their charter.
Yeah, and that's the food as a weapon that Kissinger's so famous for. But, of course, we know Bertrand Russell said the same thing. John P. Holdren, along with his partner over there, writing the same thing in Ecoscience. And, yeah, it's a hostage situation.
Yeah, economics, money, is so it's one of the biggest forms of warfare. You can wipe out a country so quickly by using economy and banking, very, very quickly. And, of course, it's all private banking, so we've no say in the matter. That's why they keep it private. And also, in ancient times, they used economy as well. They would do embargoes. They wouldn't allow any trade coming into or out of a state. Water. Water is up for grabs. They want one company eventually to run the whole world's water supply. The United Nations already has a whole branch dedicated to that. And same with your food. You have 5 agribusinesses that have taken over the food supply of the entire planet. So this is all part of this global system of where they will distribute wealth. Also, power is a big one. In the 1930s, a group first came out with this idea that all labor and money anyway is simply energy in one form or another. And so they came out with technocracy, and they said that eventually they would also own all energy supplies. That's why a company that runs your electricity, for instance, is amalgamating with the big boys, the global boys, all the time. And they will ration your power depending on the area, region you live in, or your social status. You won't need much if you're at the bottom. That's what they claim. And they won't lose money and profit off of it because they can cut you by half consumption and charge you twice as much if they want to. And so they would all sewn up. And this is the problem in the so-called free trade type deal, where big corporations are allowed to amalgamate and consolidate, monopolize, in other words, whole areas of everything you need for survival. You understand, what we're talking about here is an overall war plan, a very old war.